What's up, guys? Alex here, ajnashville.com. I want to first apologize for the late podcast. I've had quite a bit going on, and as most of you know, on any day that the podcast is released, I like to keep the content as fresh as possible, so that means recording on that day. Well, if it's a day that I have closings or other appointments that are set into place, and obviously getting that podcast out there first thing in the morning is a little bit difficult to do. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Today is an absolutely beautiful day out. It's one that we haven't seen in a while. Granted, the government stepped in and they went ahead and took one of our hours of sleep away, so it kind of threw everything for a tailspin this Monday, getting the kids ready, things like that, doctor's appointments, all the crazy stuff that went on this morning kind of threw the whole week into a tailspin already. But you know what? It's a beautiful day. Glad to be here, glad to be alive, glad that you guys are taking time out of your day to listen to me babble on. Hopefully we find some value in it, we find some worth with this, and you continue to tune in. Do me a favor also, if you know somebody that this podcast can benefit, tag them, share it with them, make them listen to it, whatever the case may be. Anyways, today I want to talk about something that we've all experienced, and that's negativity. Now, whether you experience this directly through your own actions, or maybe you've experienced it from negativity from somebody else, it's definitely something that all of us, no matter what the profession, no matter what your age is, if you're old enough to be listening to this podcast, you've probably experienced it. And that's negative talk, negative mindset. It gets infectious when you have somebody that has a negative thought process about anything. All of us have been in a situation, I'm sure at some point in time, where you have the water cooler conversations, and especially if you're in the mortgage or real estate industry, you're talking about how shitty things are. Oh man, this loan didn't close because of this reason, and suddenly you have a crowd of people that are sitting there and they're absorbing that negativity. It's infectious. You'll literally sit there and there's nothing wrong with your day, and you'll listen to somebody else complain about what's going on in their mind, and suddenly your mindset changes and that negativity bleeds out of you as well. It takes a very strong individual to point out the fact that the person that is spewing negativity may be incorrect, or to find the faults in what it is that they're complaining about. Because let's face it, nobody wants to be disliked. Nobody wants to walk into a conversation and have the people around you dislike what it is you have to say. But in order to hold yourself and other people accountable, sometimes it's a very necessary thing. The water cooler talk is just a little example of what people see nowadays. Because before, back in the day, it was just around the water cooler that you heard negative things. You may have heard it trickle down the grapevine. Maybe somebody told you something bad that somebody else said, and you hear that come down the pipe and you decide whether to confront that person or continue to move on. Now with social media and the ability to get out there and speak to hundreds of people at once, you sometimes see that negativity. I say sometimes. There is a lot of times that you see that negativity on a very high level. And it's all dependent upon what it is that we decide to do with that negativity. See, the thing is initially something negative attracts people because they want to gossip. They want to hear about the noise. They want to hear what's going on. They want to hear about the other people's misfortune. They want to hear people complain. But then after a while, that negativity starts pushing people away. Let's face it, in your day-to-day life, you deal with enough negativity as it is. Why deal with somebody else's? So naturally what we do is we start to navigate away from that negativity. We see that person, maybe they're walking in the hallway, maybe their news feed pops up and says they just posted something new, or maybe they've gone live on Facebook, and we decide to get away from that and kind of separate ourselves from that negativity. At least that's what the strong people decide to do. They try to pull themselves away from that negativity because the thing is they don't want to be impacted by what it is that person may have to say. Now, if you are in a situation where maybe something negative is being said about you, the biggest thing you need to do is find a way to approach that. If it's something that's harmful to you, do it in a professional manner. Don't ever engage with a person in a negative mindset in a way that's confrontational or that's negative in itself. Because let's face it, people with a negative mindset have nothing to lose anyways. They've already lost it. That's why they're poking at other people's mindsets. So instead, you either have to let the water roll off your back and continue charging forward and not care about what people say, or deal with it directly and approach it in a professional manner. Maybe someone has something to say about what it is you do for work. Instead, you may approach that person and say, hey, Mr. Smith, and I'm using Mr. Smith as a loose analogy or a person that, well, I have a friend named Mr. Smith, but I'm not using him as this example. But you may approach and say, Mr. Smith, I heard you said that my job, the performance wasn't going that well. So I want to ask you, what is it that I can do better to perform the way that you think I should perform? That lets the person know that, hey, you know what? Somebody told on you, for one. For two, it puts a confrontation right in front of them and says, hey, there's an issue here. If you think there's a way I can improve, you tell me that way so I can improve in a way that maybe you think is going to help me grow. Now, bear in mind, not every point of negativity is constructive. There's a lot of them that aren't. I mean, there's a lot of situations where somebody says something negative and there's nothing constructive about it. In that case, you just have to pivot and move. Get rid of those people that have the negative mindset. Now, that doesn't mean that there doesn't come a time where something negative comes out of our mouth. The only thing that matters is how long you bask in that negativity. Are you able to keep trucking? Are you able to keep going forward without sitting there and contemplating and thinking about the negative things that are going on? Or do you just sit there and dwell? It's very easy for us when somebody confronts us with negativity to get into it and say, you know what? That's me. That's part of me. That's who I am. That's how I act. And it's very easy to become very critical of ourselves when people say negative things about us. Now, I want to be very clear. Nobody's made any negative statements towards me, because I know some of you listening to this are like, who pissed Alex off? Nobody has. It was just a thought process, something that pops in my mind. Much like my other podcast, I usually do them off something that happens, something I've seen, something I've experienced, and typically it's something that's happened within that day. It's easier for me to do podcasts that way because then I can push the emotion to you guys so you can hear how passionate I am about a certain topic or subject. It's easier to do things that way because then it allows me to portray the message in the way that I saw, in the way that I felt. This way you can hear it when you tune in. So once again, the negativity isn't something that was directed towards me. Now, I do see people very consistently, especially online, with a negative mindset, and guess what happens? After a while, you have to get rid of those people. I'm not saying, stop talking to them altogether and boot them out of your life, but if they're on your Facebook page, then go ahead and ignore or unfollow that page. Because the last thing you need is to be down and out about something and then see somebody else that's pushing a negative message and then engaging with that and carrying their problems on your back. That's the last thing you need. So start pushing those people out of your lives. When you start removing that negativity, that negative mindset that's there, you'll find that a lot of what you do changes. You start having a positive mindset. You start pushing forward. When you surround yourself with people who engage in positive things, it's easier for you to make a mistake, figure out the solution, and keep trucking forward instead of making a mistake, sitting there and dwelling on the issue and drowning yourself in whatever negativity or sorrows that you may have. The big thing I want you to remember is you are as successful as the people that you surround yourself with. Once again, I'm not saying, hey, just get rid of everybody else. Fuck them. I'm not saying that one bit. But what I am saying is surround yourself with people that are like-minded. Surround yourself with people that want to see you grow. Surround yourself with people who are there to see you be successful, not to wait for you to trip and wait for you to fall. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is somebody that's going to talk negative about somebody else all the time will more than likely talk negative about you sometimes. It just depends on who their audience is during that time. It depends on who they're around. So you have to bear that in mind when you submerse or immerse yourself with people who have different mindsets. Today was one of those days where, like I said, I saw a couple things, throughout the week on Facebook and Instagram, and then you watch the news. Boy, I tell you what, if you want to hear something negative, turn the news on. I had to stop watching the news altogether just because everything on it's bad, 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 bad. Nobody wants to live in that. So hopefully you have not ran into that today. Hopefully you are full of positivity today. Hopefully whatever it is that you went out to accomplish today has been accomplished. Hopefully this message finds you well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to speaking again on Friday. Thanks.